Consider the following scenario. Joe and Bob are next-door neighbors. One day Joe comes over to Bob's house and tells Bob that his wife is having an affair with Tom across the street. Joe shows Bob pictures of Tom and Bob's wife together. Bob asks Joe what he thinks he should do. Joe tells him he should go confront Tom. Joe gives Bob a gun. Bob breaks into Tom's house, and in self-defense, Tom shoots Bob dead. As it turns out, Bob's wife was not having an affair with Tom. Joe made it up. He knew it was false. He fabricated the evidence with Photoshop, and he did this because he wanted to hurt Tom, maybe even kill him. Joe didn't want Bob to die, but he didn't really care much whether or not he was hurt or killed. Now, my question for you is Joe morally responsible for Bob's death? If you were on a jury, would you find Joe guilty of manslaughter? Of murder? Think about it for a second. This is the thought experiment at the heart of Vincent Bugliosi's book, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder. Bugliosi was the Los Angeles County Assistant District Attorney who prosecuted and convicted Charles Manson. He won convictions in 106 out of 107 cases, including all 21 of his murder cases. His prosecutorial expertise is beyond reproach, so when he says there's a strong legal case to be made against Bush, we should take that very seriously. Hopefully the analogy is clear, but just in case it isn't, let me spell it out. Joe is Bush, and Bob is the U.S. military servicemen and women. Joe knowingly told Bob something that was false. On top of that, Joe fabricated evidence to motivate Bob to commit a hostile action. Likewise, Bush told the American people something he knew to be false, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Furthermore, he fabricated evidence to convince the American people of this. If you doubt either of these two facts, Bugliosi catalogs a wealth of evidence in support of them. If nothing else, just grant me these assumptions for the sake of argument. Just as Bob broke into Tom's house and was killed, American servicemen and women invaded Iraq and were killed, about 4,300 as of this recording. Bugliosi notes that Bush was also morally responsible for the deaths of the 100,000 or so Iraqis who have died in the conflict, but begrudgingly maintains that there exists no legal framework to hold him accountable for those deaths in a U.S. court of law. He sets aside the issue of war crimes. If you thought that Joe was morally and legally responsible for Bob's death, then doesn't it follow that Bush is morally and legally responsible for the deaths of the American servicemen and women who have died in Iraq? I've been amused by all the coverage of the debate over whether or not there should be prosecutions of Bush administration officials for torture, as it seems to me to really miss the larger point. If Bush, in fact, knowingly and willingly misled the American public into a war with Iraq, and 4,300 Americans have died as a result, is he not responsible for those deaths? If a private citizen told such a lie, and even one person died as a result, we would not hesitate to hold him accountable. If no man is above the law, and if the same standards that apply to you and me apply to our elected officials as well, then George W. Bush should be held accountable. He should be prosecuted for murder.